Well, thousands of Australians have been unhappy with their pay and conditions at work, and it is forcing employees to take action. From teachers to supermarkets, even Centrelink staff, many workers have been going on strike as the rising cost of living crisis continues to bite.
Whether you're in an office or on a building site, there are some pretty basic strategies you can use to try to bump up your wage. So how do you successfully ask for a pay rise and avoid more extreme industrial action?
For more, we're joined by workplace expert Michelle Gibbings. Nice to see you again, Michelle.
Good to be here.
The labour market is restless. We've seen lots of strikes lately. Do these actually work to get better pay for workers?
Look, it depends. And whilst we have seen a bit of an uptick recently, typically we don't get a lot of industrial action like that in Australia. And if it does happen, it's usually after a protracted period of negotiations that haven't led anywhere.
So, Michelle, if you're trying to offer advice to anyone watching about how they might successfully negotiate a pay rise, I understand it's a very broad question, but what would be your early tips?
The first thing is do your homework. You need to know the going rates in your industry that relate to your role so that, is what you're asking for too high or actually are you going in too low? And then once you've got that data, you can build your case. Why is it that you deserve a pay rise? What's the value that you're offering through your role? And then you also want to understand, what does this mean for your boss? So what's your boss's perspective on this? Because you want to be able to pitch your ask in a way that is more likely to resonate with them. And then when you're making that ask, be really specific. What is it that you're actually asking for?
Is there a good time to ask for a raise?
Look, the timing issue is really important, and there's three parts to this. Firstly, organisations often have pay and performance cycles, they have budgetary cycles, so you need to understand how they work and also the timing so that you're asking before budgets for the next financial year are locked in. And then secondly, you really want to make sure that you're asking at a time that's a good time for your boss. So if it's perhaps that you've landed a really big deal or you've finished a really big piece of work and it's all gone really well, they're more likely to be receptive to it. So make sure that they're in a good headspace. And likewise, make sure that you're in a good headspace too, because asking for more money, it can be pretty stressful. And so you want to go in as relaxed as you possibly can.
Should do it in person, Michelle, or set it all out in an email?
Look, ideally do it in person. I think it can really help to get it down in writing in terms of what it is that you want so that you're prepped in your own mind about how that ask is going to play out, but ideally do it in person.
We all have the odd bad day at work, but are there longer term signs that it might be time to leave your job and look elsewhere?
Look, there certainly are. If you're at that point where you're feeling burnt out, you're exhausted, the thought of going into the office just makes you feel physically unwell, that's an absolute warning sign. And likewise, if you're bored, you've stopped learning, you feel like there's no further career progression, those two are signs. And then lastly, if you're looking at your role and you know that you can get a sizable pay increase if you go somewhere else, that's also a big incentive to look elsewhere.
So for people who are looking elsewhere and weighing up other industries, what are the industries, Michelle, looking for work right now?
Well, as you'd all know, unemployment, it's still at historic lows, and it's the same industries that we've been talking about for a while. Aged care, health sector, the retail, hospitality, huge shortage of construction and tradies in professional roles. What we also know, though, is those vacancy rates are higher in Queensland, Victoria and New South Wales.
Well, Michelle, really good advice there. We hope that helps out people who may be sitting at home going, you know what, I need to start looking elsewhere. Some good tips. Thank you.
My pleasure.